Or curse, right?
Or curse, ideally. Okay. So I'm Ruth, and this is my friend Charlie and his roommate / my friend Nick. And I chose them to be in this video for this project because I'm Catholic and they are...
I would say raised Protestant, but now non-denominational is more so what I would... Yeah.
So I thought it would be interesting to talk about our beliefs on Jesus and where they might contradict and where they might be similar. Anyways, so I already told you guys, but the topic is like talking about whether Jesus was a Lord, liar, or a lunatic, as in you can't really believe one without, you can only believe one. You can't believe two, because either you believe that he thought he was the Lord and he was, or you believe that he was just some guy that everybody thought was super influential, or you believe that he was just a crazy person who thought he was the Lord, but he wasn't. Anyways, my argument is that he was the Lord and he thought he was the Lord and he was, so that, yeah. And then my case for that comes from Brant Petree's The Case for Jesus, mainly in chapter 9 of it, where he talks about some of the reasons that some of the evidence that Jesus was the Lord, and he was telling / showing his disciples in like these kind of subtle ways. So the argument against him being depicted as God and like claiming to be God is that in 3 out of the 4 Gospels, it's not mentioned that he's the Lord, but you can kind of tell if you read between the lines and look at the historical context based on the miracles that he performs and some of like the riddles that he says to be understood by his Jewish audience. And then the first one would be the stilling of the storm. And that miracle points to the fact that he was God, he knew he was God, and he was trying to like slyly tell people by stilling the storm, because in the Old Testament and Jewish scriptures it said that the power to control the weather and sea is reserved for the Lord alone. And so that would point to him being the Lord because he was able to do that.
He's kind of indirectly making a claim.
Exactly. And also people say like, well, what about other people during that time who performed miracles, like Elijah praying for the rain and then it raining for 3 years and then him praying for it to stop and it stopped. But that was different because Jesus didn't have to pray. He just was able to do it. And then when he walked on water, he said to his disciples, I am, in all 3 accounts. He said, I am, do not be afraid. And in the Old Testament and Greek and Hebrew translations, I am is just another name for the Lord, like saying, I am the Lord. And this is one of the only times that Jesus refers to himself as I am. Like usually he'll say like, it is I, etc. And so that was kind of a big pointer that he knew he was God and he was telling them. And then after he said I am, all of his disciples were recorded to have dropped down in worship to him, which is not like a normal response to like some random guy saying it's me. Like that was clearly him claiming to be the Lord.
Where else did he claim, Nick, where else did he say I am? And it was in the garden, right, during his arrest or before his arrest? Do you remember?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
The first time that's mentioned is in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Whenever Moses, it's the 10 Commandments, right?
Yeah, I would believe.
And so that's kind of just like a reference back to that.
Yeah.
Like God referring to himself as I am.
Okay. And the next piece of evidence comes from chapter 11 of Petre, which is about the crucifixion. And this was one that I thought was really like cemented in being like, well, duh, he is Jesus and he knew it and he was claiming it. Because when he's on the cross, he says, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" which is from Psalm 22. And a lot of people will read that and initially be like, oh, well, he was like not God, because he was like crying out to God and asking why he abandoned him. But if you know the whole psalm, which all of the Jewish people watching would have, because it's from their culture, you would know that in the end of that quote, he calls out, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" But then by the end of the psalm, you realize that the God didn't forsake him, and he came back around and helped everyone who was faithful and had faith in him. So that was just like a Jewish riddle up on the cross.
It's also
for him, like,
in my mind, it's also interesting because, like, if we make the claim, like, okay, a lot of people interpret that as like the amount of sin that was on him, or like if he's taking on all the sins of the world, then like God cannot be in the presence of sin.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of where I feel like that whole train of thought kind of stems from, where people are debating whether or not, like, or maybe this could also be interpreted as like he's crying out out of like regret, or maybe like he's not enjoying the experience he's going through.
No, he
like
wasn't.
More of a human.
He was saying a riddle to the Jewish people, because by the end of the psalm, it's like the completion of the prophecy. And so him saying that up on the cross, all the Jewish people would understand because they know the whole psalm. So they would be like, oh, well, he's not really dead, and they.
No, I understand that. I think I'm just more negating the claim that like a lot of people will use that phrase as a reason to discredit like the crucifixion.
Yeah.
That's why. So in my response to that, like I would say, also, I don't really think these two things can exist in the same world if he also claims like, "Lord, forgive them, they know not what they do." Right. Yeah. That is that's interesting too, because that is a phrase that somewhat embodies a bit of divinity as well.
Yeah.
In my mind.
Yeah, because then he's like separating himself from the common people.
Yeah.
Very true. Okay, one guy who had a different opinion than Brant Petrie was Marcus Borg. In his paper, he was talking about a pre-Easter Jesus and a post-Easter Jesus. And he was basically saying that, in his opinion, and everything he got from the Gospels and everything, was that pre-Easter Jesus was just some guy, and he wasn't a Lord quite yet.
Yeah.
And he didn't really become divine until after the resurrection. And that's when he became the Jesus that we know in Christian tradition now.
So he became Lord.
Yeah, after.
I do remember.
He wasn't Lord prior. But
that's because of post-Easter creations?
I don't really agree with that. Like, it makes sense, obviously, but I don't really agree with that theory, just based on what I was talking about earlier, like with the miracles and kind of the little riddles that he would say that insinuate that he was Lord and he knew it, even before the resurrection.
What's the point of that theory?
I don't really know what the point is. It was just like him.
Some people cannot grasp, like it's easier for them to grasp the idea that like
he was
a man, because like for some people that is a challenging idea to accept. It's like it is a challenging idea to accept that maybe possibly the Creator has a preordained plan and or like conscious knowledge of human behavior. So that's like I think that's why like this whole train of thought kind of stemmed, is because there are a lot of people that like they do like they may relate with a lot of Christian culture, but perhaps they don't.
They can't grasp that he was Lord in his time.
Or just they can't grasp the idea that there could be someone who is fully divine and fully human.
Yeah.
Right? And that's fine.
Definitely.
Like there are people that, they think their own thing.
And my last piece of evidence that I thought was just kind of whatever for my life is like going to Catholic Mass. Whenever they're doing the readings and the homilies, the priest always speaks of Jesus as a God. He's never like talking about excerpts from the Gospels and talking about any ideas about Jesus just being a regular guy at any point. He always refers to Jesus as being a Lord and not a liar or a lunatic or average. Anyways, what do you guys think about all of that?
Give me a minute to think.
It's okay. Did you ever have you ever thought about that question, like whether you believe he's a Lord, liar, or a lunatic, or did you always think?
It's a pretty popular question, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you could definitely see Jesus as being a cult leader also.
Yeah. Well, that was what Borg was talking about. He was like,
Or the miracles maybe were, in the way that they were written, maybe they were more of a sleight of hand kind of thing, or what's the word I'm looking for?
coincidence.
Not as literal,
magical.
Not as literal as it
Symbolic.
as it translates to now. But not symbolic either. Well, yeah, I guess symbolic, but more like showing the blind man how to see, maybe he was blind spiritually, not physically, but there's also
blind
a lot
to
of
an illness, or there's a lot of ways that
there's a lot of proof in the scripture that he was literally blind, but I know that there's a lot of arguments made that it could be more of a sleight of hand kind of thing, like a cult leader or.
But that's why I was
very
bringing up all
charismatic.
that evidence, all the miracles that I talked about. They all connect back to, even if him stilling the storm wasn't really him stilling the storm, that's still odd that it was written like that, and in the Old Testaments and other
the amount of
prior existing knowledge, the only ones who could
the amount of
control weather
fulfilled
would-
prophecy
yeah,
is pretty
exactly.
bomb-baffling.
And that was
Yeah.
definitely, the weather thing was definitely that's a huge sign of, in every single ancient religion, that's a big sign of divinity, because that was
Yeah.
all these fertility religions, that's a big thing is the weather, and that's kind of whoever controls the weather is Lord.
Exactly.
And there were many lords before Jesus came, and so for him to be able to do that is a pretty good sign that he is not only Lord, but the new Lord,
and he
in
knew
power.
it.
Yeah, and he was fully aware. I definitely fall under the camp that he believed he was Lord, and that he was Lord. I don't think that he was a liar,
No.
but I think that he was either Lord or lunatic. I think those are the two that are more likely.
Yeah.
I also happen to fall underneath that camp as well.
Do you think that it would change anything? Do you think that it would change the impact that Christianity and the Gospels have if he was just a lunatic and he wasn't actually divine? Or do you think they would still have the same?
That's a really good question, because a lot of people, I think it's talked about a lot now, especially in politicized circles, but there's a lot of people now that I'm seeing that would claim to be religious, or they would associate with Christians, or they would call themselves a Christian, but they're primarily focused on living out their faith because of the social benefit. And a lot of people happen to believe that Christianity as a religion, which I don't know if I don't really subscribe to the way they're going about this. It's that nationalism kind of rise in recent years, but they want to practice Christianity because of these societal benefits. They believe that it's more orderly.
So for them, it wouldn't really change if he was.
So I think it's interesting that you asked that question, because that means that things have already kind of occurred that way. Now we are seeing people that are kind of completely removed from Scripture, or completely removed from traditional Christianity, still associate with the group. So I guess if Jesus was really a lunatic and not fully divine, then I don't know. I don't know. I could see that as a possibility in some people's minds, given the recent rise of new sects of Christianity. So
Definitely. What do you think? Would you?
if he was just a lunatic, would it matter?
Exactly.
Is that what you're
that's
asking
what I
me?
was asking,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I think for sure, because that's what I'm saying. Some people say it because of the social benefits and the moral lessons, this outweighs like this is valuable enough to practice regardless if this person was really
Yeah.
God. I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a good argument.
It would definitely like heavily like affect the theology, like big time, obviously, because then, you know, everything we believe would be wrong, but it wouldn't be. I don't think it takes value away from the scripture, and I think that that's where like a lot of people's faith comes from. Is like I think most people, if they're honest, grapple with the idea of Christ's divinity, period. A lot of people who just kind of like believe that he was Lord 100%. I think that, I mean, for me personally, like even growing up and still like admitting that I believe he's Lord, like there's some days that I'm not sure, you know, and like humans need proof, and there's a lot of what do you call it, prophecies that were fulfilled, and there's a lot of proof to back that up, but I think that it's still something difficult to grapple with. But I think that regardless of whether or not you fully believe it, a lot of people still practice it, and there's still a lot of different branches of the religion that have kind of strayed away from even that belief. Like a lot of these theologians, like they still probably practice their faith even though they maybe believe that Christ wasn't Lord necessarily. So I think that the faith itself kind of proves Christ's divinity as well.
I agree completely. All right, closing time. Did you guys learn anything?
I definitely enjoyed talking about this just because I think it's really relevant. I don't know. I've had this conversation asked to me before in church circles, and I've had this conversation asked to me before in, like, you know, more academic settings, but I do think that continuing to ask this question is great for us to understand where religion is moving culturally. So I think you did a really good thing.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed talking to you guys a lot. Thank you so much for your time. I think that went well.
Thank you.
Fire. Holly, these mics are sick, dude. These mics are really good.